How did COVID-19 affect traveling worldwide in 2020 to 2021? Today we'll talk about the way COVID affected the travel industry. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's head into it. The travel and tourism industry. Tourism has grown steadily over the last few decades, becoming one of the world's fastest growing economic sectors. Over the last decade, worldwide tourist arrivals have increased by 59%, from 880 million in 2009 to 1.5 billion in 2019. With tourism-specific developments and an expanding number of national and international destinations, tourism is also a vital engine for socio-economic progress. In 2019, the tourist business provides $8.9 trillion to global GDP, a contribution of 10.3%. It's also worth noting that tourism employs 1 out of every 10 people on the planet, or 330 million people. However, the strong historical growth has been halted in 2020 amid the global COVID-19 pandemic, with airplanes on the ground, hotels closed, and travel restrictions implemented. Travel and tourism became one of the most affected sectors since the very start of the virus spread. The pandemic has cut international tourist arrivals in the first quarter of 2020 to a fraction of what they were a year ago, closing borders, tourism, and travel ban to combat the spread of the coronavirus. Countries all around the world imposed travel restrictions, airport closures, incoming and outgoing aircraft suspensions, and statewide lockdowns are just a few of the measures that governments are taking to help contain the pandemic. Following the pandemic's expansion in the first 2 quarters of 2020, at least 93% of the world's population lived in countries with coronavirus-related travel restrictions, with around 3 billion people living in countries with complete border closures to outsiders. The decline of international tourists during the pandemic. The number of international tourist arrivals has been growing remarkably in the last decade and still sustained growth throughout the years. In 2017, arrivals reached a total of 1.3 billion globally, 2018 reaching 1.4 billion, and 1.5 billion in 2019. In 2020, and with the severe impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, international tourism went down by 22% in Q1, and by 65% in the first half of 2020 when compared with 2019 figures. In March 2020, the UNWTO proposed 3 scenarios for possible declines in arrivals of 58% to 78% for 2020, depending on the start point of gradual opening of borders and lifting travel restrictions. According to the UNWTO's March forecast and its September update, the recovery for the industry might be in 2021, and domestic demand is expected to recover faster than international. In May 2020, the majority of the UNWTO tourism experts expect to see signs of recovery by the final quarter of 2020, but mostly in 2021. COVID-19 and airline failures. According to the financial projection issued by the International Air Transport Association, airlines worldwide are predicted to lose $84.3 billion in 2020, with a net profit margin of minus 20.1%. It also predicted a 50% drop in revenue to $419 billion from $838 billion in 2019. Revenues are predicted to climb $598 billion in 2021, reducing losses to $15.8 billion. Financially, 2020 will go down as the worst year in the history of aviation. Every day this year will add $230 million to the industry's losses, on average. That's a total of $84.3 billion. What's shocking is witnessing how many airlines have failed during the coronavirus pandemic. And even for airlines that are still in business, the situation is severely difficult. The US carriers have given out $10 billion in vouchers due to the pandemic. Listed below are a few examples of the biggest coronavirus-related airline failures worldwide. LATAM. To date, Chile's LATAM is the largest airline to file for US bankruptcy protection in May due to the pandemic. LATAM says it will continue flying as it restructures its debts in bankruptcy court. Avianca Holdings, the second largest carrier in South America, Avianca survived the Great Depression, but not coronavirus. The airline filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in May. Like LATAM, Avianca will continue flying during the restructuring. Virgin Australia. After almost 20 years of operation, Virgin Australia, the country's second biggest airline, filed for voluntary administration, the equivalent of bankruptcy restructuring. It's the largest airline to collapse in Australian history. Flybe. The British regional airline Flybe was already struggling before coronavirus, and both the UK government and Virgin Atlantic tried to save it. However, the airline entered voluntary administration, similar to bankruptcy in March. Miami Air International. After 29 years of service, Miami Air International filed for Chapter 11, then proceeded to cease operations. Hospitality sector hit by the lockdown. The lockdown due to the pandemic has affected the tourism industry across the globe, and the hotel sector is among the hardest hit. Global hospitality data company STR compared 2020's first quarter status to 2019 figures. Hotel occupancy rates dropped as much as 96% in Italy, 68% in China, 67% in UK, 59% in the USA, and 48% in Singapore. There's no doubt that the hotel industry has witnessed a severe impact by the pandemic and the lockdown status. STR is also comparing US hospitality statistics between May 9, 2020 to May 11, 2019, and reported a sharp decline in global hotel performance indices, 55.9% decline in occupancy to 30.1%, 42.1% decline in average daily rate or ADR to $76 to $76.35, 74.4% decline in revenue per available room to $22.95, balancing the return of tourism revenues and safety. As of July 2020, the EU opened borders to tourists from 15 different countries, leaving the US off the list. Health officials developed a plan to classify accepted countries based on how the country is performing in controlling the coronavirus. A country is considered under control when they have a number close to or below the EU average for new coronavirus cases over the last 14 days and per 100,000 inhabitants. On June 15, the European Commission launched Reopen EU, a web platform that contains essential information, allowing a safe relaunch of free movement and tourism across Europe. The platform will provide real-time information on borders, available means of transport, travel restrictions, public health, and safety measures. Safe tourism. Enabling tourism once again would require measures ensuring that people are and feel safe towards traveling. Global safety and hygiene stamps are awarded by the World Travel and Tourism Council to countries that are demonstrating their commitment to reopening their tourism sector as they recover from the coronavirus outbreak. The WTTC, a council that represents private sector travel and tourism, created the Safe Travel Stamp to allow tourists to recognize governments and companies around the world which have adopted health and hygiene global standardized protocols, so consumers can experience safe travels. Eligible entities such as hotels, restaurants, airlines, cruise lines, tour operators, attractions, short-term rentals, car rentals, outdoor shopping, transportation, and airports will be able to use the stamp once the health and hygiene protocols outlined by the WTTC have been implemented. As of September 2020, the Safe Travels list included 100 destinations with Saudi Arabia, Spain, Portugal, and Mexico among the first destinations to adopt the stamp, and the Philippines as the 100th destination. The return of tourism globally. With lockdowns ending around the world, many countries have started to ease border restrictions and reopen for international tourists. Although many governments are still advising against non-essential international travel, a host of popular destinations have eased their COVID-19 border restrictions and are readily welcoming tourists back. The European Commission have released guidelines for how its member states can start to ease coronavirus travel restrictions and enable tourism to begin again. The Baltic states are creating a travel bubble, allowing citizens to travel freely between them. New Zealand and Australia have committed to introducing a trans-Tasman COVID-safe travel zone as soon as it's safe to do so. Destinations like Dubai, the Maldives, Egypt, Lebanon, Croatia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Jamaica have already opened their doors to foreign visitors once again, while Thailand hopes to reopen soon. While tourism is slowly returning in some destinations, most members of the UN WTO panel of tourism experts expect international tourism to recover only by the second half of 2021, followed by those who expect a rebound in the first part of next year. However, there are still concerns over the lack of reliable information and deteriorating economic environment, which are indicated as factors weighing on consumer confidence, especially with the potential new limits on travel as the world comes to grips with the second COVID-19 wave. The concerns over the second wave of the coronavirus brought on by returning vacationers are wreaking havoc on the world's tourism industry. What do you think? Leave us a comment below and make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our future videos. With that, I'll see you in the next video.